And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So tonight, I actually have a very special guest with me, two special guests, as a matter of fact. I have the producer, Jessica Olthof, and also director Darren Haruo with me, and we're going to be talking about their little film called NISEI. It's actually had a lot of positive buzz around the Holly Shorts Film Festival, and it's actually one of my favorite short films that I reviewed this year, and I had the privilege to be able to review this film. So without further ado, let's go on ahead. Let's get on with the show. And hey guys, welcome to the show. I do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your night to talk about your film.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so I just want to say this, man. The cinematography for this movie was fantastic. I actually felt like I was in the back seat with the two best friends talking. And you can definitely tell that there was a tension of like not wanting to be meeting their father for the father before heading out. I really liked the tension building with it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, something that our cinematographer Connor Van Bodell and I talked a lot about is the perspective of it and the perspective of where the camera is, just in terms of like what should the audience be seeing and what should the audience be knowing. You know, we often talk about Alfred Hitchcock's The Bomb Under the Table, right? Like if the audience knows the bomb's under the table, but the characters don't know, that's way more, terrifying as an audience member to watch it. And so it's really figuring out like what the perspective was and making sure that it kind of helped push the story along.
For sure. And I can definitely tell that. And also, too, I like how I'm actually part of this ride in the back seat. And I'm actually just feeling like I'm reaching over and just eavesdropping on these two characters talking back and forth, which makes me that more engaged into the movie itself. Then I also like how you captured what it was like in California. And then you go into Italy later on in 1944. I love how you captured those elements. My question is this, though, too. Like whenever you're looking at scouting locations for this, what was the scouting locations like, and where did you manage to find how to do the POW camp and stuff?
Yeah, we filmed in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, it kind of looks like Italy, especially when we're filming. The location was we found it through San Jose State, where we used to go to school like 10 years ago. And this World War II collector has basically this property with a bunch of tanks and this like hut that he allowed us to basically blow up. It's his backyard. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
We were really fortunate that we can kind of make the film around that location. Otherwise, I don't know how we would have been able to pull it off with our budget. So
yeah, and I think we had like obviously the script already made and we were kind of basing everything off of it, but like especially like the battle scene where it's like, okay, we know our limitations of we're going to be in this location, we know there's an 88 cannon, we know there's a cottage, and I would go out there, we would all go out there, us the cinematographer, and we would just kind of sit there for days at a time just talking about like how we can make this feel larger than life and how we can use the space to its fullest. And so it was a lot of working back and forth between the original idea versus what we were able to get location and prop wise.
Yeah,
I think it works out very well, even though you guys say it's like short. As far as the location goes, it looks wider than what it actually looks like. And I just want to commend you guys on using the shots the way you did with those wide angle shots, and we're still able to make it into like a larger than life kind of way of filming. So I definitely enjoy that aspect of it.
Right. Well, actually, a funny story about that. One, we had to matte paint out a lot of modern houses in the background, just because like you can see like houses and a couple like barrels and stuff that was not to the 40s. But when we actually originally scouted, it was still green and lush and like the grass wasn't dead yet. And so, part of the 442nd's journey is they fought in France and Italy. And so I was like, oh, this is great. This is France. This is where, we could say my grandfather fought here in this cottage. And then about like a month out before we went to shoot, like we shot in the fall and we come back and everything is dead and all the brush is, falling over and it's brown. And we're like, okay, well, that doesn't really work like France anymore. So like, well, they fought in Italy too. So we were able to shift it towards that way.
I like the fact that you were able to do it towards that way, towards Italy. And I think that, even though you weren't able to get those shots that you have wanted, I think that the scale that they used for it was fantastic, though. And even doing the tension building of everything so quiet and then all of a sudden you're thinking that everything is fine, but I had this really tense moment, just like in Glorious Bastards, for example, where you see the main bad guy coming into the house, and everybody's underneath the house. That's what I felt like whenever I was watching this for the first time. I'm like, something's about to go down, because there's always a quietness before the storm, right? So I'm like, there's something that's going to end up happening. And I love the action sequence in it. I thought the stunts worked very well. And the sound mixing, man, I was really intrigued with the sound mixing for this film.
Right.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you. Yeah, our sound designer Nick Boswin did a fantastic job, and we've worked with him in previous projects in the past too. And so even before we even shot it, we started talking about like the theory behind like the battle scene specifically. And it was, like you said, it's this idea of this almost like oasis or pocket of calmness. And you hear in the peripheral, you'll hear like little explosions and gunfire and stuff like that. But it's like, it's unnerving for the soldiers too, because they're like, okay, nothing is happening. Why is nothing happening? Something must be wrong. And so it's really building the tension and building the world. Like obviously the set pieces and the locations are important, but if I will say first and foremost, if you have bad sound design, it ruins everything. So we did
For sure. But I actually did feel like I was part of the action, especially whenever the main character goes into the hole. I felt like I was in the hole with him and trying to and I was like, come on, get up. Come on. You got to move. I'm over there yelling at my phone and everything. I'm like, come on, get up. So I was actually feeling the suspense of the film and stuff like that too. And I even watched it on my 45. A matter of fact, I think I've watched this movie like 5 times, to be honest with you. I've watched it on my big screen inside the bedroom and everything to get the better outlook of the film. I mean, man, this film is one of those films that sticks with you. And it's like, even at work, I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to live in those days, to being part of that war and stuff. So I actually had stuff going through my mind as I'm rethinking about this film. So I just want to say it does have a way of sticking with you.
Right.
Thank you. That's the goal.
Yeah, you're very welcome. But okay, so my question is this. Okay, so the production company in itself is very interesting. And I like the fact that you guys are able to slowly build out your production company. You're able to take your time with the actors and stuff like that. Where did the idea originate from to do the story for this? And how long did it take it to shoot? And what was the story behind your production company?
Right. I can do the story part,
Yeah.
and you can do everything else.
Yep.
But yeah, the story is, I'm Japanese American myself, and I've grown up with these stories and going to reunions and Japanese bazaars since I was a little kid. And anytime I could do a book report, I would do it on my grandfather and my grandmother and the internment camps in the 442nd. And I never realized how unique that was, in the sense of like, one, not only it's Japanese American community, our experience, but also it's a West Coast thing too. And so it's like, 120,000 Japanese Americans got put in internment camps. That was all on the West Coast. No one on the East Coast really knows this story. And even in our history textbooks, it was, one line in a history book.
Right.
And like, I would see that in elementary school. I'd be like, oh, that's my grandfather. That's my family. They did all this stuff. And everyone would be like, have no concept over that. And so I always told these stories. And now, like, being a filmmaker and being, a filmmaker full time, being able to pursue my passion, like, I always knew I wanted to tell this story eventually.
And what was the second question?
About the company and shooting.
Oh, so we both went to San Jose State University years ago, and there's a summer film program every year. And he actually did his first film through that program, his short film. And so then we decided to go back, and we kind of taught the summer film class, a little bit about film production. Darren and I both we were crew members. I was a production coordinator. I started off as a second AC for a long time. And then Darren was doing grip and lighting. So we both have like a really strong background in film production. So we went back to the school, and for a few months, we helped the students. We kind of taught classes. I taught students how to run a production office, how to do sides, call sheets, organize files, like all of the boring things. But I taught them all that. And then Darren and the cinematographer, Connor, they taught like lighting, and I guess you guys did like shot listing and like really like taught the students how to do a production from the ground up. And so we did that during the summer, and then we filmed. We hired all our department heads, but we did use students to like fill in the little places, and they got to shadow department heads. So we filmed for 7 days total in Northern California, and then we had another day in Manzanar, which is where the actual internment camp is.
Which is kind of a crazy long schedule for a
Mhm.
short in general, but that was part of like the educational aspect of it, like taking our time in pre-production, taking our time in production, and really making sure everyone learned and it was safe. So
That's really cool though. Like you guys were able to use what you had and was able to make this film work the way you guys needed it to work. And I like how you guys did this. Okay, it shows how the impact of what it was like in California, and then you go on ahead, you bring us into Italy on how people are faced with this war and stuff like that too. And that's what I like. I like the both sides of the coin where you basically gave us two different lenses to look at it. So I like that idea because I don't really see it that much in war films like I used to. And that's something that I feel like that's missing now. Is like I want to see both sides of the story of how one side is actually looking at it and then how the other side is looking at things rather than just one side. Because I don't like one-sided stuff. I want to see both sides. So I thought were able to tell the story that way and fantastically.
thank you. Well, I think too, like, most stories, especially American films of World War II, like we're the good guys, we're the heroes, we're defeating the evil axis of Europe, Germany and Japan. And people don't realize like what was happening back at home too with the camps. So it's kind of showing this dichotomy of what America was doing at the same time. And while we still get touted as, the heroes and all the glamour, and you think of like all these like specific like images or kind of visceral things, like at the end of the day, like we were in the wrong too, or America as a country was in the wrong too for what they were doing.
Right.
But you still had this community willing to sacrifice themselves, willing to prove their loyalty. And like I said, my grandfather was born and raised in America. He's not, he wasn't born in Japan. He is American, and that's all he knew. So
Right. And I have a question. The father figure that's in this movie, that is represented like your grandfather, right? Where basically,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I kind of figured because I'm like, I like this dynamic of the father. He's like, look, America's done for me, but for you, it's your turn. It's your turn to do what you need to do, and that's going to be your home now. So I like the fact that it may not be for me, but I'm willing to let it be for you. I like that counterbalance because at first it seems like he's opposing the war and he's against the war. And I like how you managed to do that. And then you also gave us characterization to where we care about the characters and have that emotional impact later on in the movie, which I'm not going to get to what happens later on. But I love that whole entire thing with the flag. I thought it was even down to the costumes and everything. You managed to pay attention to detail that was so great and unique for a 20-minute short film.
Yeah, the little kind of fun fact is the patches, the 442nd patches on the uniforms are actually my grandfather's patches from the war. Those aren't replicas; those are actually what we had, and we put them on for the specific shots, and we took care of them. We took them off immediately so we wouldn't damage them. But no, like, and then like, so like, again, not any spoilers, but like when he visits his father in the internment camp, like that is based off what happened in real life. And you realize, like, listening to my grandfather's tapes and like hearing him talk about it, it's like he was like more concerned with his father's approval, right, than the whole thing about what was, America putting us in these camps. Like he was more afraid that his father was going to be ashamed of him volunteering, especially because his father was born and raised in Japan and was an immigrant that came over. And so what, again, not any spoilers, but what his father actually did and said to him, like, that's all real. And so that was a very like big weight off of his shoulder, because my grandfather talked about that. He goes, I thought, once I volunteered, I was just going to die over there, and I was prepared to die over there. And so like, I didn't think my father approved, but I knew I had to go see him one last time just to, try to reconcile that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like speaking of like everything looking authentic, that location we actually filmed at a real barrack recreation, I guess I should say, in San Jose at the San Jose Japanese American Museum. So a lot of the artifacts in there, everything in there was true to, I guess, the museum. They brought it in. except for some pieces like that your mom made.
Yeah, like the cranes, like my mom made those. There's actually a blanket on the bed in the background. You'll see that's actually my great grandmother's. And the building itself, it's part of the museum. Like it's 3 walls inside the corner of it. And one of the founders of the museum, he actually was in Tule Lake in one of the camps when he was a little boy. So when they made the museum, he built it basically to his childhood memory of being in there.
That's pretty neat. I definitely like that idea, to be honest. And I think that, like you said, there's with both sides of the story and everything that I think that people don't realize this too. Like, oh yeah, we're the heroes, but people forget people's lives are actually being taken away. You don't know if you're going to be able to see your great grandfather again or anything like that either. So having the main character be like, look, I want to make sure this is okay before I go off to war. Because I don't know if I'm going to see you again. And some people forget about that, about the whole entire aspect of the fact that you may not even see your family again. You may not be able to do the same things that you did when you came back and stuff like that. And I think that you capture that essence, especially with the little boy coming to the son, the grandson, and he winds up giving him the flag. It's like, and that hit me with feels because it has the realization, the tantalization of the fact that, they may not even make it home. And just to have that symbolization of something back home with them and everything is just very moving.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's really just that kind of balance of character dynamics too, of what, you think is expected of a son, what's expected of a father. And I always kind of described it like when I was talking to everyone, like the crew and stuff, it's like basically it's a bunch of grown men trying not to cry in front of each other and put on a strong face and prove that they're tough enough. And I think that's some of the best, storytelling in general, where it's like people hard to express feelings, right? And so there's a physicality to that. There's like a stiffness on purpose because it's like you want to reach out, you want to say, I love you, you want to say these things, but like everything, your whole life leading up to that has kind of stalled you from doing that. So.
Exactly. And I also like the banter between the army, between the military and the main characters. I really loved it. You can definitely tell within those minutes, even though we're only introduced to them like for the few minutes that we have them. But I love the chemistry. I loved what you guys did with the banter with them. I especially whenever he said, "Sorry, we don't have any small clothes for you." I was just dying laughing with that. I was like, "Yeah, this actually does feel like these guys have been together for a while and doing this."
Yeah, and I mean, you can dive into like the history and facts of it too. There's so many layers of the Japanese Americans that were from Hawaii versus they called them the mainlanders, the ones that came from California and from the camps. And it's like a lot of them kind of jabbed each other. A lot of them like did not get along first and foremost. Like they kind of treated each other separately. And so to kind of have those quips, to kind of have those jokes amongst each other was very important. Also, you kind of need a little bit of levity in these kind of films too. So
definitely. My question is this though too. So when did how did you wind up picking the casting for this? Did you know all along that you wanted these actors, or was it something where you were specifically looking for a certain look for the grandson and things like that?
I mean, do you want to talk about the casting process? No, I mean, like we didn't really know what to expect going into this, and so it really was open casting. And so we put out auditions, and just for some context, we've done films in the past, and it was just like a female this range or a male, and stuff like that. We would get 2,000, 3,000 submissions, but this is so specific, about the Japanese American unit, and so we didn't know what we're going to get. We ended up getting like, I want to say 200 submissions, which may seem like a lot, but it's nothing in the grand scheme of like when you normally do a casting process. And so right off the bat, you're limited in like your selections and submissions, but we were just super fortunate with everyone, with Jonathan and Brent and Jabez and everyone else. They just, as soon as they I saw their self tapes, I knew there was a good fit. And we did a lot with the casting process of finding dynamics between each other too. So we would bring them in and we'd have them interact, like especially Jonathan and Brent, the two brothers. They actually came over to my apartment for the bus scene, and I have the footage, like I shot it on my iPhone of them sitting on my couch pretending it's the bus, just in normal street clothes, and just really letting them explore and play off of each other. And it was very eye-opening for us too. Like all these stories are like from my family, but Brent, for example, his grandparents were in the camps too. And actually, when we went out to Manzanar, he goes, my grandfather carved his name on a rock out there that you can go find. And Jonathan, he's second generation himself, so he actually is NISEI. And so it was all these little things that everyone brought something to the table, and everyone had a unique perspective of it that really just helped elevate it. So
I definitely could see that though, man. You were able to elevate the scenes. You were able to tell the story the way that it needed to be told, and then also too, I know from what I remember reading, you said that your grandfather died in 2011, right?
Yeah, it was around 2011. Yeah.
Okay, and so but this to me is like a dedication to him, and to be able to tell, not only bring the history up to our forefront, but also to get some recognition for your grandfather for the time that he served and his memory as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, on a side note, my grandfather loved movies, and my dad, he has a huge DVD collection, Laserdisc collection, if you want to go old school. And so like he would always come over and grab, like, he'd have his little takeout bag, and we always joke that it was like the library renting out DVDs. And so like some of my fondest memories is sitting in his living room and watching movies together. And so it was very special to me, not only from telling the historical about the unit itself, but knowing that my grandfather loved movies, and he would appreciate this on so many levels as well too. So it was during the process, I didn't think much about it, but like once we finished shooting, it was a big weight off my shoulder, and it was very emotional. So
I'm glad that you were able to do this film. Seriously, man, I really love it. It sticks with me too from day to day, like I mentioned. But my other thing too is I know that there had been some challenges that you had to face while filming, or for Jessica too with producing. But was there any kind of challenges whenever it came down to this film?
Yeah, I mean, to start, it's just working with a small budget is a challenge in itself. Trying to find locations, crew, production design, props, everything, costumes, all of that. And then the bus, like everything to fit within a budget is like the main challenge. But thankfully we made a lot of it work. Like I said, we both worked in crew. So we kind of had this idea of like bringing, we brought in friends, we brought in people we really knew and trusted, and they all really wanted to work on this film with us. So that was like that was a plus to helping with like counteract like this very tough task with a low budget. But we lucked out with like finding the bus, for example. Our executive producer, Barnaby Dallas, he happened to run into somebody who knew of this bus museum like 20 minutes from San Jose State, where we were filming for a lot of it. And then we just went over there, and they had this bus, and it like fit within our budget, and it ended up working, like actually running. I think they fixed the bus like
right before we were about to shoot. Yeah.
Like right before.
That's perfect.
So it was just like this, everything kind of aligned, which I think it worked out. So yeah, it was very tough. Even though we had a lot of days, still, you always want more shooting days. So just fitting everything in there. Safety was also really important to us. So we had, of course, we have weapons and explosions and everything. So we had a full day of prep and like weapons training. We had an armor, an assistant come out up to the Bay Area and like work with the actors to make sure everything was safe. So we really like took our time with every aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I like the attention to detail, even within the bus itself and everything. I'm glad that they managed to fix that right on the schedule that you guys were shooting. That's perfect, and it's like a perfect storm in a sense. But another thing I want to mention is this: I like how you also captured the racism. It seemed like at the very beginning, though, too, as well, because you also winded up capturing that within the California, and I love how you captured that without having to say anything. And I believe that you don't have to say anything. All you have to do is just give us a character, because acting is 99.9% just the look versus it being the dialogue. And the way that you capture that, I'm like, okay, I understand what you're going for and stuff like that. So I thought that worked very well without even having to say anything. But man, I cannot praise you enough for this because seriously, I would actually own this on Blu-ray if I could.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I do think film at the end of the day is a visual medium, and so less is more. And I think especially like when you're in like the writing stage, you tend to overwrite dialogue and overwrite that kind of stuff. And then when you film and you realize it's you're visually seeing it, but they're also telling you at the same time. And I think that really detracts because then it feels like it breaks the world, right? You're no longer like in this world, you're watching a movie, you're watching a play kind of thing. And so it's kind of finding that tiptoeing that line with how much dialogue do you need to push the story forward and how much can you tell visually. And I think that is finding a good team, because I mean, at the end of the day, filmmaking's a team sport, right? And so you have to have actors that are on board, that trust the cinematographer, that trust art, that trust everything else, and knowing that, hey, by doing this angle, this shot on this lens, this will portray what you feel like you would want to say normally, right? And so it's building that team and everyone trusting each other.
Exactly, because you need to have a good team behind you, otherwise it's going to fall apart. So I totally understand that. How long did it take you to write this story, though? Too
I mean, we went through a few rewrites and revisions, and long and short, I would say probably about 6 months in terms of doing this in a short form. Like I've expanded on it and done it smaller, and like we're working on developing the feature script right now too. But for the short specifically, it was about 6 months.
Okay, that's not bad though. That's actually pretty inspiring for someone that's writing I'm actually writing something myself, so that gives me some hope to actually have some inspiration as well. So I just want to say thank you for that. But I think that's everything I had wanted to cover as far as the film goes and the direction that you guys are going in. I want this film to win for the short film in the Academy Awards because it definitely sticks with you. This movie has legs. This movie has a way of actually paying attention to details. This movie will make you cry, make you laugh, have all the emotion into one single package. 1 minute I'm laughing, then the next minute I'm crying my eyes out. I'm trying not to cry. My wife's like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Just give me a tissue. What's wrong? I said, allergies? No, it's not. I said, this film is making me cry and it's breaking me. So I just want to say, commend you for your team and your efforts and the production team, the mixing, everybody behind y'all. You did a fantastic job.
Well, yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah. And that the end goal of this was first and foremost to make it, for my family and our family and make something that we'd be proud of. And the second part of that was just to get new people to see this, new people who don't know these stories, and to educate them. And, maybe someone watches this and now they're going on Wikipedia and looking stuff up. And now, you have someone else who knows about the 442nd. And so it's just continuing the education and keeping these stories alive. So.
Exactly, man. And, like I said, I didn't know anything about this going in. I didn't know about the 442nd. Anything about this at all. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look up as much information as I can because now I'm that much enthused into it. And the New Orleans Museum actually has an exhibit, so I might actually check that out though too, since I'm only about an hour away from that. So you definitely gave me a reason to actually go diving back into my history again.
Yeah.
And stuff. So I just want to say thank you for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
that's what we set out to do. So it worked.
And so that's going to be it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This has been a huge pleasure. I wish you guys nothing but success with this. And I'm hope that Theo actually keeps me on track on where you guys are going with it, because I'm excited to hear more of this greatness with what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep you updated.
Yeah.
We're posting on Instagram and all of that.
Yeah, I bet you guys followed.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll keep everyone updated. We're still doing the festival circuit even while we're doing this for your consideration push. So keep a lookout. There may be some screenings or around you, if not like online screenings. So there's definitely places to watch it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, that's going to be it as far as the show goes. I hope that everyone has a great, safe night. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe button. Don't forget to go on ahead, follow them on their Instagram accounts and everything too. I have everything in the descriptions below. And always until next time, guys. Bye-bye.